then this product is fantastic for areas like that. Welcome to The Art of Gardening. I'm your host, Melissa Lalo-Johnson, and today I am excited to kind of give you an update on our spring lawn renovation. So typically in Kansas City or in places where it gets super hot in the summer, you are not running lawn renovation in spring. You are doing it in the fall. Here we start in September, and over usually Labor Day weekend, we have the aeration done that Friday before, and then we spend the weekend dropping the seed and covering seed and getting everything watered in. And that has been typically what we've always done, which has helped. If you look back at the before pictures of our yard, it was a complete disaster. There were weeds and dirt everywhere. And that has renovated our lawn year after year to be absolutely beautiful. Well, over the years, I want to say the last 4 years, we have found that we got a bad bag of grass seed. We use a triple blend tall fescue with a Kentucky bluegrass mix. Sometimes we have found that in the Kentucky bluegrass mixes that you can get some of the not so great Kentucky grasses that are the bluegrass mixes that it's not a mix, it's a weed. And the seeds are so small and they look very similar to the Kentucky bluegrass, so you get these annual bluegrasses that are noxious and terrible. And so what happened was we noticed over the last few years that we were getting, this grass was kind of spreading. It looks exactly like the fescue in the spring, and it's gorgeous in spring. So you think that everything's coming up wonderfully. And then it turns kind of like a lime green color. And this is specific for the Poa Trivialis, also known as Poa Triv. And then the Poa Annua is a sister to that. And the Poa Annua doesn't turn the lime green, but it produces a seed flower, like a flowering head, once the grass gets established and before it goes dormant. So what was happening was we were every year having these huge patches come up dead and just going dormant, and we thought it was fungus, and we thought we weren't watering properly or it needed fertilizer. None of those things were true. It was this noxious grass that had gotten into our lawn, and we know for certain that it came from bags of seed because we have it in very specific areas, and it was in round circles. So like when we're going to fix things in the spring, my husband will clear out a circle around wherever it is and then drop soil, add the seed, drop more soil, and then those areas come up in circular patches. So we knew something was going on with the seed, and now putting all the pieces together, we realized this had spread throughout our whole lawn. So the Poa Annua spreads very easily because it comes up to seed in the late spring, and the seed pods were everywhere. I mean, last year it was so thick with seeds when I was mowing it, and that's when we really started to realize something's not right. This grass should not be here. So fast forward, we got some great insight as to finally that this was the Poa Trivialis and Poa Annua that had gotten into the lawn. So my husband last year had ordered some pre-emergent specific for, which I will have that information in the caption, pre-emergent that was specific to helping growth regulate the POA. So that, I do have to say, helped tremendously. We put that down in the fall when we had first learned about this, and that helped with the pre-emergent of the seeds coming up in the fall. But then we also treated again this spring, and we decided to do a lawn renovation. So we treated with the spray this spring for the pre-emergent of the POA, and I have to tell you, we had a drastic reduction in the amount of seed pods that I saw this year. And so that was tip number one. Number two, the only way to truly get rid of the Poa Trivialis is to spray it with Roundup. So we had to go through the entire lawn, entire acre, and go through all of these spots. And let me tell you something, my husband was very liberal about his herbicide spraying with making sure this gets out of the lawn. So we had huge patches of the just dead grass everywhere. And so a couple of things happened from that point. We went in and we seeded. We had some errors because I did not realize that the sprinkler setting on the sprinkler panel was set to adjust to seasonal adjustments. So when I thought that the lawn was getting in some areas 4 minutes of watering, it was only getting 1 minute. So we had a couple different spots that we're going to be waiting. We're going to be doing those bigger spots in the back. We're going to reseed those and just wait till fall, because right now I would have to water them constantly, and then that can bring fungus when it gets super warm. So we're just going to wait until the fall to be able to do that. However, in the areas that I'm able to keep a close eye on, so that's the front yard and this whole area across the front, and then the front of the side, those areas came in fantastic. And that was pretty much because I was doing additional watering with the hose every day, bringing it to these areas and kind of just watering. And I can't even say every day, I want to say it was probably every other day. But once I started and noticed that the seedlings were coming up, then I went and started, kind of giving a good watering when I would notice that it was dry. So with the craziness of life, I just didn't realize that this is what was going on, that the watering wasn't correct, until finally my husband was like, you better check the watering and see what's going on. So I checked the panel and was very sad to find out that they were getting a fraction of the amount of water they needed, especially to sustain 90-degree days. And this is why people don't seed in the spring. So had my sprinkler system worked, because after I fixed it, the new areas that he had planted right before that have come up beautifully. So if you have irrigation, it is possible to do spring seeding. The other issue with spring seeding is that in the spring, you typically put down pre-emergent. So if you're putting down pre-emergent, that will not allow your grass seed to sprout, and to germinate. However, my husband's trick is we get the pre-emergent in the spring, and then what he does is he finds his round circles of what need to be done. He puts down a layer of lawn soil, and then puts the seed down, and then puts the lawn soil over top of that. So then it creates a barrier from the pre-emergent so that the grass seedlings can germinate and then make their way down, the roots can make their way down into the soil. So that is the easy way. However, that requires irrigation. So let's see what's next. So the areas that we were able to actually oversee came in beautifully, but we do have quite a few areas in the back that need to be fixed. So let's update let me just go back into those areas. We will be doing the fall pre-emergent again. And what we have been able to research is that doing this fall pre-emergent over the course of a few years really helps to combat the POA. The POA just snuffs out, both of them, the Triv and the Annua, snuffs out the fescue. So leaving these, and it's just very strong, it's a very vigorous grass. So if they can only find a way to blend that DNA with the fescue and keep it around, through warm season, that would be great. But that's the goal for next year, and I will continue to keep my process with this updated on Art of Gardening. I'm going to do this again when we do our fall renovation, and then the update from fall renovation, and kind of keep this going seasonally. So definitely keep an eye on that. So in the areas that aren't able to be fixed, I used grass paint. And so grass paint is something, my journey with that kind of started when I really started getting into the lawn. I noticed that the tracker that people were using, which is more of like a blue color, when they would come and they would spray the different chemicals, the fertilizers and things like that on the grass, I noticed that the areas that were kind of going dormant or kind of getting dingy, they would spring back to life. Now granted, it was a blue tint, so it didn't really do the trick I was looking for. When I went in and asked them about this, and this was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I asked them, I said, what can I do? And they said, well, golf courses around here, one of our biggest customers is turf paint for this purpose. So I immediately purchased a container of turf paint. The issue was it was massively expensive. And I came back and I sprayed it, permanent turf paint, beautiful, lawn, amazing. Well, fast forward to my work with PETRATOOLS. I started working with PETRATOOLS 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And when we started working together, I was testing their sprayers, and I really found that I loved their products, and kind of then they decided to start launching lawn care products in a more natural way, which of course I loved, the whole idea of that. So they sent me grass paint a couple years ago, and I used it, and it's very well priced. It makes it so that you are able to have what a professional golf course has in your hands for your property. So if you're like me, I work way too hard to be able to maintain and pay for all of the different things that have to happen to keep this yard looking well. I don't want to see huge brown spots I don't want to see those things. So I know to each their own. This happens to be my priority. So if it's your priority also, then you're definitely gonna wanna hear this. So I use the grass paint. What I find the best scenario for the grass paint is if you are seeding with fescue and you're doing also things that are cool season grasses that will go dormant in the summer, but you've got your fescue going, then this product is fantastic for areas like that. If you've got heat stress, where you've got some of the green grass still thriving, but you've got a lot of it is brown, and you want to not have to water 800 million gallons a day, spray it with the grass paint. So the grass paint is very easily applied. I would mix it. I know in a lot of my videos, I mix it in my driveway, and it has spilled in my driveway. And if you spray it immediately after it spills, it's not a big deal. However, if you let it sit there for a few minutes, then it will stain your concrete. So you definitely want to try and mix it in the grass if you're going to mix it. And then I have a dedicated pair of shoes that are only for, when I spray my grass. So I do keep those things. It will come right off of your skin. I stain my feet every single time I spray it, just with the different drifts and things of the wind, but it comes right off in the shower. And so that is the good part. It is a permanent dye though. And one thing I want to make note of, we put all these different videos up. I do all these different tests for PETRATOOLS, and we've had a couple videos recently really, really take off with 1 million views, more than 1 million views. And so from that, we get a lot of great interest, and we get a lot of great questions, and we also bring out the haters. So we get some really aggressive questions sometimes. And one of the most recent questions that I had was someone saying, well, you say this is natural, but that could mean 1,000 things. So what does that really mean? So in going through my friends at PETRATOOLS and, definitely getting I know this is natural, but to be able to prove it to other people, I formulated a response that is very simple. This is a natural blend of pigments, surfactants, and emulsifiers. However, it is proprietary. I can refer you to the SDS sheet that is listed on the product page of PETRATOOLS. So if you go to PETRATOOLS and then look up grass paint, you can see the SDS sheet, which is by law what we have to provide with exactly this information. So you can see that the review of those things, you can clearly see it is a natural product, as it has various compliances to OSHA 29 CFR 1910.1200, which lists no ingredients as hazardous. This product does not contain any exposure limits that require disclosure according to OSHA Hazard Communication Standard 2012. No ingredients contained in our blend that are listed in SARA Section 355, 313, PrEP 65 chemicals known to cause cancer, reproductive toxicity, or developmental toxicity. No ingredients from the carcinogenic EPA list also. We have a 0 rating for health, fire, or reactivity properties. This does not present an explosion hazard and is not self-igniting. This product will not irritate the skin, has no adverse effects if inhaled, low ingestion hazard, and is not considered to be a carcinogenic by IARC, ACGIH, NTP, or OSHA. The hazard classification is our product is classified according to the Globally Harmonized System, GHS, which mandates the accuracy of my statements now and the labeling on the container. So if that doesn't tell you that this is safe and non-toxic and able to be used on your lawn, then I don't know what else to tell you. Anyway, so a couple different things. We get questions about, well, will it dye the dog with the paint? Will your shoes get... So once it's applied, so simply we're mixing up the grass paint in a sprayer, and then once that is mixed up in a back and forth motion, you're gonna hit those spots. And if you're hitting a certain spot that you're trying to blend in with an outside area, I hold the wand a little bit higher on that last round and kind of just let it spray out so it kind of makes an even coating. I do this on areas that are dormant, on areas that are going through heat stress where there is some grass still there. The only thing I've noticed it doesn't work well on is if your grass is completely dead, not dormant, dead, and it's actually going to break down and wear away to a hole in your lawn. That is probably a lost cause where it's going to need to be reseeded and let it grow, because it's just not going to give you the look that you want. You're still going to have a depressed hole with fragments of grass in it. But for the areas that I mentioned before that, if you are trying to conserve on water and you're just going to let some areas of your lawn go dormant, then this is exactly the product that you need to use to keep from having to use hundreds of gallons of water. And I'll tell you, quite frankly, here in Kansas City, to irrigate my lawn, I had another person say, well, why don't you just irrigate? It costs nothing. To irrigate my lawn for an entire month, the way it should be irrigated to keep this grass alive everywhere is about $700 a month. And not to mention the fact that it still doesn't keep grasses that are cool season grasses that go to sleep in the summer, it won't keep those alive. So if you're looking for a way to be able to treat and avoid those issues, then the grass paint is for you. So you mix the grass paint up, you give it your application. I would keep it away from the sides of the driveway, the stones around the borders. I use a piece of cardboard for that and kind of spray up against it so that the spray doesn't get on any of those things. Again, if it does, you can spray it off and it will be fine. So that is part of the spraying with the grass paint to just maintain, or pet spots. That's another thing this stuff is great for. If you don't want to look at your lawn and see a bunch of holes everywhere, of just pet spots, this is a perfect fix for that. You can go right over top of it, spray it with the paint, and it'll fix that area. You will not see it. So what about mowing over it? So we get this question a lot. If you're spraying a dormant grass, whether you're mowing or not, the grass doesn't grow. So if you spray it and treat it, then it will stay permanently dyed. And then when you mow, the other live grass gets cut. It's that simple. And it's actually perfect because when I mow now in areas that used to be kind of brown and getting yellowish due to heat stress, those areas now look beautiful when I mow because everything has been treated so that I get a consistent green color across the top. Back to my question about will it come off on shoes or pets. So I have a cinnamon colored chow chow. I've got ivory carpeting and I have not had any issues after this has dried. Now, Bear, my chow, has gone and rolled in it before after I've sprayed, and he has turned a hint of green that has washed out after I've given him a bath. However, I got a question on this morning, and she said, well, what happens? I've got cream colored Pomeranians and I've got cream colored furniture, and this sounds like it could be a disaster in my home. So I said, you know what? I just sprayed last week in the front yard where I had some dormant grass that now looks fabulous. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna take, just before I post this to say this will not stain, which I did believe it didn't stain before when dried and after being thoroughly dried and then re-wet again. I said, just before I post this and give my word on this, I'm gonna test it. So I went and I got a paper towel. I folded the paper towel up, it was dry. This was about 8 o'clock in the morning, so the grass was wet, there was dew all over it. I went up into those areas, and in 4 different areas, I ran the paper towel over the grass, and not a single piece, nothing came up on the paper towel. So there's a slight tinge of brown, and that is obviously because it's grass, it's outside, there's dust and whatever, all the things. So there's a slight tinge of brown, but there is absolutely no green on this. So I feel 1000% confident in saying that this will not come off after it has been thoroughly dried. So that's the ticket with that. And like I said, I have the shoes because it's when you're spraying, it's going to, stain whatever's spraying. So when I do spray, I wear black clothing and make sure that I have shoes or boots on, and then anything else gets rinsed off in the shower. So it's wild because this too is it's made from pigment-based dyes. This is made from the same type of natural products that we use in cosmetics. So for eyeshadows and blushes and things that change color, hair dye, things that change color that are safe for us to use. And they use the natural based pigments because there's less of a chance of allergic reaction. So these are the same types of things that we have been able to include in this product and that this product is derived from to keep it safe for your grass. And like I said, overall, I feel like this helps with watering and the tremendous amount of water that you need to put down on a lawn when you can spray it and just kind of forget it and it looks beautiful. So if you have any questions, I would love, love, love to hear your questions. Please leave them in the comments and we will do our best to answer them and keep the tests coming. Definitely check out our page. We've got fantastic tests going right now on the grass paint, on mulch glue, on all these different products that we have that are naturally based, products that can really help your landscaping and help you keep your game up on your lawn and landscape. So check it out and leave us your questions and comments. Thank you so much for joining me again, and we'll see you again on the next Art of Gardening.